Okay guys, so memorizing the unit circle is very important, especially if you're going to take AP Calculus next year. So if you do take AP Calculus the first day of school, I'll expect you to know this. So here's some little tricks on how you can memorize this, and it's more just patterns versus just memorizing actual numbers. So if you don't have a layout of the unit circle, you can always just draw your own. So it's really just a circle. It's split up into the 4 quadrants. Okay, so we have quadrant 1 over here, and then quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and then quadrant 4. And then in each quadrant you have 3 different spots that we're going to be filling in for the unit circle. Okay, so I'm going to start with degrees first. So for degrees, if you think about a circle has 360 degrees. So if we start over here, we're going to have 0 degrees. And I'm going to count up by 30 degrees to get every spot except for the middle ones. So 0 plus 30 will be 30. Skip the middle one. 30 plus 30 is 60. Add another 30, that gives you 90. So this is a good checkpoint where you can make sure it makes sense. So if you do an angle from here to here, that would be 90 degrees. So we're good. So 90 plus 30 gives us 120. Skip the middle. 120 plus 30 gives us 150. 150 plus 30 gives us 180. Another good checkpoint. This is a straight line, which should be 180 degrees. Alright, 100 plus 30, 210. Skip the middle one. 210 plus 30, 240. Add another 30, we get 270. Add another 30, we get 300. Skip the middle one, add another 30, we get 330. And then we're back around for the whole circle, which should have been 360 degrees. So, to get all the blanks for the degrees except for the middle ones, I just added 30, and you should end up with 360. To get the middle ones, it's halfway between the two numbers, or if you want to take the smaller number and just add 15 to it, that'll work too. So 30 plus 15 will give me 45, directly in the middle here. 120 plus 15 will give me 135. 210 plus 15 will give me 225. And then 300 plus 15 will give me 315. So that's how you fill in the degrees for each spot on the unit circle. Okay, next I'm going to do the radians. So you have learned how to change degrees to radians, but you would not have a calculator for this, so you're going to need to memorize. So I'm going to do the main ones first. So if we have 0 degrees, that means we just have 0 radians. Okay. And then if you remember, all the way around a circle is going to be 2 pi radians, so this one's going to be 2 pi. Okay, because over here is half of the circle, if a full circle is 2 pi, then half the circle would be pi. And then between 0 and 1 would be a half. So this would be pi over 2 at the top here. So it's like 0, a half, 1. So this would be like 1 1/2, which is 3 halves, or 3 pi over 2. So those are the main 4 points. So it starts at 0, 1/2, 1, 3 halves, it goes around to 2, and they all have pi with them. Okay, so then from there, everything is a pattern. So all of the radians at the other spots are going to be fractions, and I'm going to just work with the denominators of the fractions first. So this has a denominator of 2. We're going to count with the pattern 2, 3, 4, 6. So this is going to have 3 in the denominator. This is going to have 4. This one's going to have 6. We're going to repeat this pattern. So this is 2, and this one's going to be 3, 4, 6. Okay, from the bottom, the 2's here, so you're going to go up. So this is 2, this one's going to be 3, 4, 6. Okay, 2, count up. This one's going to be 3, 4, 6. So those are going to be the denominators for all of our radians. Okay, from there, the first quadrant is just going to get pi. So pi over 3, pi over 4, pi over 6. Think about that, makes sense. If this is 0, this is like 1/6, 1/4, 1/3, 1/2. So those numbers are getting bigger as we go that way. Alright, so these are just pi. So over here, we're going to start where we count. So this is 1 pi. If you count up, the next one would be 2 pi. Then count up again, it would be 3 pi. Okay, if we count up again, this would be 4 pi. We can't put 4 pi there because it would reduce, so we have to move to the next number. So after 4 pi would be 5 pi, and that will work since that won't reduce. So once again, should make sense. This is 2/3, 3/4, 5/6, and then it goes to 1. Alright, same kind of thing at the bottom. So we started with 3 pi, we're going to count up. So after 3 pi would come 4 pi. Then we would have 5 pi. Then we would have 6 pi, but if we put 6 pi, it would reduce, so we got to move up to 7 pi. Alright, for the last quadrant here, this is 3 pi. The only thing is the next number would be 4 pi, but because we've already used 4 pi over 3, we can't repeat the same spot. So you're going to skip to 5 pi. You count up, the next one would be 6 pi, but if we put 6 pi, it could reduce, so we have to move to 7 pi. Okay, if we count up, it would be 8 pi, that would reduce. 9 pi would reduce. 10 pi would reduce, so we're going to have to stick with 11 pi would be the first thing that doesn't reduce. So there's a pattern so that you can get your radian measures. You can just memorize them if you want to, but I think that pattern helps a lot. Okay, so there's degrees and radians. So the next part we have is our outside values of the unit circle. So for outside values of the unit circle, I'm going to do the main 4 points first. So if you were to graph this point over here, you would be moving over 1 space and up 0. So this is 1, 0. If you were to graph this spot, you would be going left 1 space and up 0, so negative 1, 0. Okay, if we were to graph the top part here, you go over 0 and up 1, so 0, 1. And at the bottom, we would be going over 0 spaces and down negative 1, so it would be negative 1. So that's how you get the 4 main points. Just think that you're plotting 1 space over, either over, up, down, left, or right. Okay, for the other remaining points, they are all going to be fractions, and all of the fractions are going to have a 2 in the denominator. So you want to do that first so you don't forget the 2's. So every denominator, you're going to want to put 2. Okay. For the numerators, we're going to pattern numbers 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first quadrant. For the 2 top quadrants, the first one and second one, you're going to start your x value with the 1. So this is the x value, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, back up 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing in the second quadrant. It's going to start with the x value. So this is the x value, 1, 2, 3, back up 1, 2, 3. Alright, because the bottom 2 quadrants are reflected, we're going to start with the y's with 1. So for quadrant 3, I'm going to start with the y value. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, back up 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the last quadrant, same thing. It's in the bottom part. So we're going to start with the y. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, back up 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we've made our fractions. All denominators were 2, and the numerators we patterned 1, 2, 3. So the next thing is everything in the numerator that is a 2 or a 3 is going to get a square root. So just go to your numerators. We have a 3, it needs a square root. Our 2's in the numerator need square roots, and 3's. So all 2's and all 3's in your numerators need to have a square root around them. Now technically 1's have square roots too, but the square root of 1 is just 1, so you don't really have to have that. So all the 2's and all the 3's in the numerators need to have a square root. Okay, then the last step is just negatives. So if you were to think about graphing a point in the first quadrant, if you were to move over, right, and up 1, both of those numbers would be positive. So there's no negatives in the first quadrant. Second quadrant, you would move left, which is moving negative x values. So all of your x values need to get a negative. third quadrant, you're moving left and you're moving down. So your x's and your y's need to have negatives. And then for your last quadrant, the fourth quadrant, you would be moving right, so that'll be positive, but then you're moving down. So only your y values are going to have a negative here. And that is one way that you can memorize the unit circle.